Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Sarv's back. Things are looking up. We're continuing our reading of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shokam abhadyapi namanyana tasya yashon kitaniyat shinvanti gayanti grinanti sadhava. It's from a different creation. It's meant to create a revolution in the impious lives of this world's misdirected civilization. It's heard, sung, and accepted by purified people who are thoroughly honest. We're continuing. Pardon me? Thank you. You're hired, by the way. Okay, so we're on text 30. This is 3:19:30. And what we have here is the demigods. The demigods address the Lord. All obeisances unto you, you are the enjoyer of all sacrifices. And you have assumed the form of a boar in pure goodness for the purpose of maintaining the world. Fortunately for us, this demon, who is a torment to the worlds, has been slain by you, and we too, O Lord, are now at ease, in devotion to your lotus feet. The material world consists of three modes: goodness, passion, and ignorance. But the spiritual world is pure goodness. It is said here that the form of the Lord is pure goodness, which means that it is not material. In the material world, there is no pure goodness. In the Bhagavatam, the stage of pure goodness is called Sattvam Vishuddham. Vishuddham means pure. In pure goodness, there is no contamination by the two inferior qualities, namely passion and ignorance. The form of the boar, therefore, in which the Lord appeared, is nothing of the material world. There are many other forms of the Lord, but none of them belong to the material qualities. Such forms are non-different from the Vishnu form, and Vishnu is the enjoyer of all sacrifices. The sacrifices which are recommended in the Vedas are meant to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In ignorance only, people try to satisfy many other agents, but the real purpose of life is to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Vishnu. All sacrifices are meant to please the Supreme Lord. The living entities who know this perfectly well are called demigods, godly or almost God. Since the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Lord, it is his duty to serve the Lord and please him. The demigods are all attached to the personality of Godhead, and for their pleasure, the demon, who is a source of trouble to the world, was killed. Purified life is meant to please the Lord, and all sacrifices performed in purified life are called Krishna consciousness. This Krishna consciousness is developed by devotional service, as clearly mentioned here. Text 31. Maitreya continued. After thus killing the most formidable demon Hiraṇyākṣa, the Supreme Lord Hari, the origin of the boar species, returned to his own abode, where there is always an uninterrupted festival. The Lord was praised by all the demigods, headed by Brahmā. Purport. The Lord is spoken of herewith as the origin of the boar species. As stated in the Vedanta Sutra 1.1.2, the Absolute Truth is the origin of everything. Therefore, it is to be understood that all 8,400,000 species of bodily forms originate from the Lord, who is always Adi, or the beginning. In Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna addresses the Lord as Adyam, or the original. Similarly, in the Brahmā Samhita, the Lord is addressed as Adipurusham, the original person. Indeed, in Bhagavad Gita 10.8, the Lord himself declares, Mattak sarvam pravartate. From me, everything proceeds. In this situation, the Lord assumed the shape of a boar to kill the demon Hiraṇyākṣa and pick up the earth from the Garbha ocean. Thus he became Adi Sukara, the original boar. In the material world, a boar or pig is considered most abominable, but the Adi Sukara the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was not treated as an ordinary boar. Even Lord Brahmā and the other demigods praised the Lord's form as a boar. This verse confirms the statement in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord appears as he is from his transcendental abode, for the sake of killing the miscreants and saving the devotees. By killing the demon Hiraṇyākṣa, he fulfilled his promise to kill the demons and always protect the demigods headed by Brahmā. The statement that the Lord returned to his own abode indicates that he has his own particular transcendental residence. Since he is full of all energies, he is all-pervasive in spite of his residing in Goloka Vrindavan, just as the sun, although situated in a particular place within the universe, is present by its sunshine throughout the universe. Although the Lord has his particular abode in which to reside, he is all-pervasive. The impersonalists accept one aspect of the Lord's features, the all-pervasive aspect, but they cannot understand his localized situation in his transcendental abode, where he always engages in fully transcendental pastimes. Especially mentioned in this verse is the word akanditotsavam. Utsava means pleasure. Whenever some function takes place to express happiness, it is called utsav. Utsava, the expression of complete happiness, is always present in the Vaikuntha Lokas, the abode of the Lord, who is worshipable even by demigods like Brahmā, to say nothing of other less important entities such as human beings. The Lord descends from his abode to this world, and therefore he is called Avatara, which means one who descends. Sometimes Avatara is understood to refer to an incarnation who assumes a material form of flesh and bone, but actually Avatara refers to one who descends from higher regions. The Lord's abode is situated far above this material sky, and he descends from that higher position. Thus he is called Avatara. Maitreya continued, "My dear Vidura, I have explained to you the personality of Godhead's coming down as the first boar incarnation and killing in a great fight a demon of unprecedented prowess as if he were just a plaything. This has been narrated by me as I heard it from my predecessor, spiritual master." Here the sage Maitreya admits that he explained the incident of the killing of Hiraṇyākṣa by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a straight narration. He did not manufacture anything or add interpretation, but explained whatever he had heard from his spiritual master. Thus he accepted as bona fide the system of parampara, or receiving the transcendental message in disciplic succession. Unless received by this bona fide process of hearing from a spiritual master, the statement of an acharya or preceptor cannot be valid. It is also stated here that although the demon Hiraṇyākṣa was unlimited in prowess, he was just like a doll for the Lord. A child breaks so many dolls without real endeavor. Similarly, although a demon may be very powerful and extraordinary in the eyes of an ordinary man in the material world, to the Lord, killing such a demon is no difficulty. He can kill millions of demons as simply as a child plays with dolls and breaks them. Sutta Goswami continued, "My dear Brahmana, Shata Vidura, the great devotee of the Lord, achieved transcendental bliss by hearing the narration of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from the authoritative source of the sage Kausharava, Maitreya, and he was very pleased." If anybody wants to derive transcendental pleasure by hearing the pastimes of the Lord, he must hear from the authoritative source as explained here. Maitreya heard the narration from his bona fide spiritual master, and Vidura also heard from Maitreya. One becomes an authority simply by presenting whatever he has heard from his spiritual master. And one who does not accept a bona fide spiritual master cannot be an authority. This is clearly explained here. If one wants to have transcendental pleasure, he must find a person with authority. It is also stated in the Bhagavatam that simply by hearing from an authorized source, with the ear and the heart, one can relish the pastimes of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible. Sanatana Goswami, therefore, has especially warned that one should not hear anything about the personality of the Lord from the lips of a non-devotee. Non-devotees are considered to be like serpents. As milk is poisoned by a serpent's touch, so, although the narration of the pastimes of the Lord is as pure as milk, when administered by serpent-like non-devotees, it becomes poisonous. Not only does it have no effect in transcendental pleasure, but it is dangerous also. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was warned that no description of the pastimes of the Lord should be heard from the Mayavad or in personalistic school. He has clearly said, Mayavadi bhasha shunile hoy sarvanash. If anyone hears the Mayavadis' interpretation of the pastimes of the Lord, or their interpretation of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, or any other Vedic literature, then he is doomed. Once one is associated with impersonalists, he can never understand the personal feature of the Lord and his transcendental pastimes. Sutta Goswami was speaking to the sages headed by Shaunaka, and therefore he addressed them in this verse as Dvija, twice born. The sages assembled in Naimisharanya, hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from Sutta Goswami, were all Brahmanas. But to acquire the qualifications of a Brahmana is not everything. Merely to be twice born is not perfection. Perfection is attained when one hears the pastimes and activities of the Lord from a bona fide source. What to speak of hearing the pastimes of the Lord whose chest is marked with Srivats? People may take transcendental pleasure, even in hearing of the words and deeds of the devotees whose fame is immortal. Bhagavatam literally means the pastimes of the Lord and the Lord's devotees. For example, there are pastimes of Lord Krishna and narrations of devotees like Prahlad, Dhruva, and Maharaj Ambarish. Both pastimes pertain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because the devotees' pastimes are in relation with Him. The Mahabharata, for example, the history of the Pandavas and their activities is sacred because the Pandavas had a direct relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Personality of Godhead delivered the king of the elephants, who was attacked by an alligator, and who meditated upon the lotus feet of the Lord. At that time, the female elephants who accompanied him were crying, and the Lord saved them from the impending danger. Purport. The example of the elephant in danger who was saved by the Supreme Lord is especially cited here because even if one is an animal, he can approach the Personality of Godhead in devotional service, whereas even a demigod cannot approach the Supreme Person unless he is a devotee. If one is an animal, he can approach the Personality of Godhead in devotional service. What grateful soul is there who would not render his loving service to such a great master as the Personality of Godhead? The Lord can be easily pleased by spotless devotees who resort exclusively to Him for protection, though the unrighteous man finds it difficult to propitiate Him. Purport. Every living entity, especially persons in the human race, must feel grateful for the benedictions offered by the grace of the Supreme Lord. Anyone, therefore, with a simple heart of gratefulness must be Krishna conscious and offer devotional service to the Lord. Those who are actually thieves and rogues do not recognize or acknowledge the benedictions offered to them by the Supreme Lord, and they cannot render Him devotional service. Ungrateful persons are those who do not understand how much benefit they are deriving by the arrangement of the Lord. They enjoy the sunshine and moonshine, and they get water free of charge, yet they do not feel grateful, but simply go on enjoying these gifts of the Lord. Therefore, they must be called thieves and rogues. O Brahmanas, anyone who hears, chants, or takes pleasure in the wonderful narration of the killing of the Hiraṇyākṣa demon by the Lord, who appeared as the first boar in order to deliver the world, is at once relieved of the results of sinful activities, even the killing of a Brahmana. Since the personality of Godhead is in the absolute position, there's no difference between his pastimes and his personality. Anyone who hears about the pastimes of the Lord associates with the Lord directly, and one who associates directly with the Lord is certainly freed from all sinful activities, even to the extent of the killing of a Brahmana, which is considered the most sinful activity in the material world. One should be very eager to hear about the activities of the Lord from the bona fide source, the pure devotee. If one simply gives oral reception to the narration and accepts the glories of the Lord, then he is qualified. The impersonalist philosophers cannot understand the activities of the Lord. They think that all his activities are Maya. Therefore, they are called Mayavadis. Since everything to them is Maya, these narrations are not for them. Some impersonalists are reluctant to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, although many of them are now taking an interest in it just for monetary gain. Actually, however, they have no faith. On the contrary, they describe it in their own way. We should not hear, therefore, from the Mayavadis. We have to hear from Sutta Goswami or Maitreya, who actually present the narrations as they are. And only then can we relish the pastimes of the Lord, otherwise the effects on the neophyte audience will be poisonous. This most sacred narrative confers extraordinary merit, wealth, fame, longevity, and all the objects of one's desire. On the field of battle, it promotes the strength of one's vital organs and organs of action. One who listens to it at the last moment of his life is transferred to the supreme abode of the Lord, O dear Shaunaka. Devotees are generally attracted by the narratives of the pastimes of the Lord. And even though they do not prosecute austerities or meditation, this very process of hearing attentively about the pastimes of the Lord will endow them with innumerable benefits such as wealth, fame, longevity, and other desirable aims of life. If one continues to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, which is full of narratives of the pastimes of the Lord at the end of this life, one is sure to be transferred to the eternal transcendental abode of the Lord. Thus, hearers are benefited both ultimately and for as long as they are in the material world. That is the supreme sublime result of engaging in devotional service. The beginning of devotional service is to spare some time and listen to Srimad Bhagavatam from the right source. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also recommended 5 items of devotional service, namely, to serve the devotees of the Lord, to chant Hare Krishna, to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, to worship the deity of the Lord, and to live in a place of pilgrimage. Just performing these 5 activities can deliver one from the miserable condition of material life. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 3rd canto, count 'em, 19 chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Killing of the Demon Hiraṇyākṣa. Jaya, 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 victory! Jai, Jai! Sadhu, 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 sadhu vadana. Okay, now we'll take a few reflections. Very few. Yes?
I just thought it was really, really great how Krishna is referred to as the coming from a place of uninterrupted festival.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and it's a utsava, it's an expression of happiness. Huh? Kandutsava. And it's ever increasing. We've experienced that. right? Every festival just keeps getting better and better. Okay, let's see. I'm looking for the Lokabaya. Okay, go ahead. That's Shakadola Prabhu for sure.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Is too bright.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. From morning's reading, I have two realizations. That it was mentioned that Hiraṇyākṣa took shelter of Narada Muni to know the whereabouts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So even the demons know that one have to take shelter of a Guru to know about Krishna. And also Prabhupada mentioned that when someone challenged, can you show Krishna to me? Prabhupada used to say that Krishna is not your order carrier, that when and where you want to see, he will appear. One has to take shelter of a Guru and serve Guru to know Krishna. And the other, demons do not accept all the instructions, they accept only the instructions which are for their benefit. Like Varuna told Hiraṇyākṣa that Supreme Personality of Godhead, he will satisfy you in the fight and he will kill you. But he just accepted this thing that he will satisfy me. He didn't consider that he will be killed.
What did he say? What did he say?
The second reflection, right? He said demons only accept only instructions which are benefit for them. So like Varun said that Supreme Lord will satisfy you in battle and he will kill you. But Hiraṇyākṣa only accepted that he will satisfy you. He neglected the killed part.
Okay, we're continuing with chapter 20, conversation between Maitreya and Vidura. Sri Shaunaka inquired, O Sutta Goswami, after the earth was again situated in its orbit, what did Swayambhuva Manu do to show the path of liberation to persons who were to take birth later on? Purport: the appearance of the Lord as the first Bora incarnation occurred during the time of Swayambhuva Manu, whereas the present age is in the period of Vaivasvata Manu. Each Manu's period lasts 72 times the cycle of 4 ages, and one cycle of ages equals 4,320,000 solar years. Thus, 4,320,000 times 72 solar years is the reign of one Manu. In each Manu's period, there are many changes in many ways. And there are 14 Manus within one day of Brahmā. It is understood here that Manus create scriptural regulations for the salvation of the conditioned souls who come to the material world for material enjoyment. The Lord is so kind that any soul who wants to enjoy in this material world is given full facility for enjoyment. And at the same time, he has shown the path of salvation. Shaunaka Rishi therefore inquired from Sutta Goswami, what did Swayambhuva Manu do after the reinstatement of the earth in its orbital situation? Shaunaka Rishi inquired about Vidura, who is a great devotee and friend of Lord Krishna, and who gave up the company of his elder brother because the latter, along with his sons, played tricks against the desires of the Lord. The incident referred to here is that Vidura left the protection of his elder brother Dhritarashtra while traveling elsewhere to sacred places and met Maitreya at Hardwar. Shaunaka Rishi here inquires about the topics of the conversation between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. Vidura's qualification was that he was not only a friend of the Lord, but also a great devotee. When Krishna tried to stop the war and mitigate the misunderstanding between the cousin brothers, they refused to accept his counsel. Therefore, Shata, or Vidura, was unsatisfied with them, and he left the palace. As a devotee, Vidura showed by example that anywhere that Lord Krishna is not honored is a place unfit for human habitation. A devotee may be tolerant regarding his own interests, but he should not be tolerant when there is misbehavior toward the Lord or the Lord's devotee. Here the word agavan is very significant. for it indicates that the Kauravas, Dhritarashtra's sons, lost the war because of being sinful in disobeying the instructions of Krishna. Vidura was born from the body of Vedavyas and was not less than he. Thus he accepted the lotus feet of Krishna wholeheartedly and was attached to his devotees. Purport: the history of Vidura is that he was born of a Shudra mother, but his seminal father was Vyasadeva. Thus he was not less than Vyasadeva in any respect, since he was born of a great father who was supposed to be an incarnation of Narayan and who composed all the Vedic literatures. Vidura was also a great personality. He accepted Krishna as his worshipable Lord and followed his instructions wholeheartedly. Vidura was purified of all passion by wandering in sacred places, and at last he reached Hardwar, where he met the great sage who knew the science of spiritual life. And he inquired from him. Shonaka Rishi therefore asked, what more did Vidura inquire from Maitreya? Here the words Virajas Tirtha Sevaya refer to Vidura, who was completely cleansed of all contamination by traveling to places of pilgrimage. In India there are hundreds of sacred places of pilgrimage, of which Prayag, Hardwar, Vrindavan and Rameshwaram are considered principal. After leaving his home, which was full of politics and diplomacy, Vidura wanted to purify himself by traveling to all the sacred places, which are so situated that anyone who goes there automatically becomes purified. This is especially true in Vrindavan. Any person may go there, and even if he is sinful, he at once contact an atmosphere of spiritual life and will automatically chant the names of Krishna and Radha. That we have actually seen and experienced. It is recommended in the Shastras that after retiring from active life and accepting the Vanaprastha, retired order, one should travel everywhere to places of pilgrimage in order to purify himself. Vidura completely discharged his duty, and at last he reached Kushavarta, or Hardwar, where the sage Maitreya was sitting. Another significant point is that one must go to sacred places, not only to take bath there, but to search out great sages like Maitreya and take instructions from them. If one does not do so, his traveling to places of pilgrimage is simply a waste of time. Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has, for the present, forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimage, because in this age the times having so changed, a sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents of the pilgrimage sites. Another significant point is that one must go to sacred places not only to take bath there, but to search out great sages like Maitreya and take instructions from them. If one does not do so, his traveling to places of pilgrimage is simply a waste of time. Narottam Das Thakur, a great acharya of the Vaishnava sect, has, for the present, forbidden us to go to such places of pilgrimage, because in this age, the times having so changed, a sincere person may have a different impression on seeing the behavior of the present residents of the pilgrimage sites. He has recommended that instead of taking the trouble to travel to such places, one should concentrate his mind on Govinda, and that will help him. Of course, to concentrate one's mind on Govinda in any place is a path meant for those who are the most spiritually advanced. It is not for ordinary persons. Ordinary persons may still derive benefit from traveling to places like Prayag, Mathura, Vrindavan, and Hardwar. It is recommended in this verse that one find a person who knows the science of God, or a tattvavit, Tattvavit means one who knows the absolute truth. There are many pseudo-transcendentalists even at places of pilgrimage. Such men are always present, and one has to be intelligent enough to find the actual person to be consulted. Then one's attempt to progress by traveling to different holy places will be successful. One has to be freed from all contamination, and at the same time he has to find a person who knows the science of Krishna. Krishna helps a sincere person, as stated in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Guru Krishna Prasade. By the mercy of the spiritual master and Krishna, one attains the path of salvation, devotional service. If one sincerely searches for spiritual salvation, then Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, gives him the intelligence to find a suitable spiritual master. By the grace of a spiritual master like Maitreya, one gets the proper instruction and advances in his spiritual life. Shaunaka inquired about the conversation between Vidura and Maitreya. There must have been many narrations of the spotless pastimes of the Lord. The hearing of such narrations is exactly like bathing in the water of the Ganges, for it can free one from all sinful reactions. Purport: the water of the Ganges is purified because it pours forth from the lotus feet of the Lord. Similarly, Bhagavad Gita is as good as the water of the Ganges because it is spoken from the mouth of the Supreme Lord. So it is with any topic on the pastimes of the Lord or the characteristics of his transcendental activities. The Lord is absolute. There's no difference between his words, his perspiration, or his pastimes. The water of the Ganges, the narrations of his pastimes, and the words spoken by him are all on the absolute platform, and thus taking shelter of any one of them is equally good. Srila Rupa Goswami has enunciated that anything in relationship with Krishna is on the transcendental platform. If we can dovetail all our activities in relationship with Krishna, then we do not stand on the material platform, but always on the spiritual platform. O Sutta Goswami, all good fortune to you. Please narrate the activities of the Lord, which are all magnanimous and worth glorifying. What sort of devotee can be satiated by hearing the nectarian pastimes of the Lord? Purport: the narration of the pastimes of the Lord, which are always enacted on the transcendental platform, should be received with all respect by devotees. Those who are actually on the transcendental platform are never satiated by hearing the continuous narration of the pastimes of the Lord. For example, if any self-realized soul reads from Bhagavad Gita, he will never feel satiated. The narrations of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam may be read thousands and thousands of times, and still without fail, new aspects of the subject matter will be relished by the devotee. On being asked to speak by the great sages of Naimisharanya, the son of Romaharshana, Sutta Goswami, whose mind was absorbed in the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, said, "Please hear what I shall now speak." Sutta Goswami continued. Vidura, the descendant of Bharat, was delighted to hear the story of the Lord, who, having assumed by his own divine potency the form of a boar, had enacted the sport of lifting the earth from the bottom of the ocean and indifferently killing the demon Hiraṇyākṣa. Vidura spoke to the sage as follows. Purport: it is stated here that the Lord assumed the form of a boar by his own potency. His form is not actually the form of a conditioned soul. A conditioned soul is forced to accept a particular type of body by the higher authority of material laws. But here it is clearly said that the Lord was not forced to accept the form of a boar by the external power. In Bhagavad Gita, the same fact is confirmed. When the Lord descends to this earth, he assumes a form by his own internal potency. The form of the Lord, therefore, can never consist of material energy. The Mayavad version that when Brahman assumes a form, the form is accepted from Maya. The Mayavad version that when Brahman assumes a form, the form is accepted from Maya is not acceptable. Because although Maya is superior to the conditioned soul, she is not superior to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She is under the control of the Supreme Godhead as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. Maya is under his superintendence. Maya cannot overcome the Lord. The Mayavad idea that the living entity is the Supreme Absolute Truth, but has become covered by Maya, is invalid, because Maya cannot be so great that it can cover the Supreme. The covering capacity can be employed on the part and parcel of Brahman, not on the Supreme Brahman. Vidura said, "Since you know of matters inconceivable to us, tell me, O holy sage, what did Brahmā do to create living beings after evolving the Prajapatis, the progenitors of living beings?" Purport. Significant here is the word avyakta margavit. One who knows that which is beyond our perception. To know matters beyond one's perception, one has to learn from a superior authority in the line of disciplic succession. Just to know who is our father is beyond our perception. For that, the mother is the authority. Similarly, we have to understand everything beyond our perception from the authority who actually knows. The first of Yakta Margavit, or authority, is Brahmā, and the next authority in disciplic succession is Narada. Maitreya Rishi belongs to that disciplic succession, so he also is of Yakta Margavit. Anyone in the bona fide line of disciplic succession is of Yakta Margavit, a personality who knows that which is beyond ordinary perception. Vidura inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahmā? And how did they evolve this material universe? Vidura inquired, how did the Prajapatis, such progenitors of living entities as Marichi and Swayambhuva Manu, create according to the instruction of Brahmā, and how did they evolve this manifested universe? Did they evolve the creation in conjunction with their respective wives? Did they remain independent in their action, or did they all jointly produce it? Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu, and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. Bus. I'm going to say it again. Maitreya said, when the equilibrium of the combination of the three modes of nature was agitated by the unseen activity of the living entity, by Mahavishnu and by the force of time, the total material elements were produced. Bas. Purport. The cause of the material creation is described here very lucidly. The first cause is Daiva, or the destiny of the conditioned soul. The material creation exists for the conditioned soul who wanted to become a false lord for sense enjoyment. One cannot trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord it over material nature, in case anybody was wondering. But in Vedic literature, we always find that the material creation is meant for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul. It's a very important sentence. I'll read it again. One cannot trace out the history of when the conditioned soul first desired to lord it over material nature. But in Vedic literature, we always find that the material creation is meant for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul. There's a nice verse which says that the sum and substance of the conditioned soul's sense enjoyment is that as soon as he forgets his primary duty to render service to the Lord, he creates an atmosphere of sense enjoyment, which is called Maya. That is the cause of material creation. Bus. Another word used here is durvitarkena. What is it? No one can argue about when and how the conditioned soul became desirous of sense enjoyment, but the cause is there. Material nature is an atmosphere meant only for the sense enjoyment of the conditioned soul, and it is created by the personality of Godhead. It is mentioned here that in the beginning of the creation, the material nature or prakriti is agitated by the personality of Godhead, Vishnu. There are 3 Vishnus mentioned. One is Mahavishnu, another is Garbhodakṣaya Vishnu, and the third is Kshirodakṣaya Vishnu. The first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam discusses all these 3 Vishnus. And here also it is confirmed that Vishnu is the cause of creation. From Bhagavad Gita also we learn that Prakriti begins to work and is still working under Krishna's or Vishnu's glance or of superintendence. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead is unchangeable. One should not mistakenly think that because the creation emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he has therefore transformed into this material cosmic manifestation. He exists in his personal form always, but the cosmic manifestation takes place by his inconceivable potency. The workings of that energy are difficult to comprehend, but it is understood from Vedic literature that the conditioned soul creates his own destiny and is offered a particular body by the laws of nature under the superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who always accompanies him as Paramatma. Doesn't get any better than that. 13. As impelled by the destiny of the jiva, the false ego, which is of 3 kinds, evolved from the Mahatattva, in which the element of rajas predominates. From the ego, in turn, evolved many groups of 5 principles. The primordial matter or prakriti, material nature, consisting of 3 modes, generates 4 groups of 5. How many?
4 groups of 5.
The first group is called elementary and consists of earth, water, fire, air, and ether. The second group of 5 is called tanmatra, referring to the subtle elements, sense objects, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. The third group is the 5 sense organs for acquiring knowledge: eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. The fourth group is the 5 working senses: speech, hands, feet, anus, and genitals. Some say that there are 5 groups of 5. One group is the sense objects, one is the 5 elements, one is the 5 sense organs for acquiring knowledge, another is the senses for working, and the 5th group is the 5 deities who control these divisions. Separately unable to produce the material universe, they combined with the help of the energy of the Supreme Lord and were able to produce a shining egg. For over 1,000 years, the shiny egg lay on the waters of the causal ocean in the lifeless state. Then the Lord entered it as Garbhodakṣaya Vishnu. From this verse, it appears that all the universes are floating in the causal ocean. From the navel of the personality of Godhead, Garbhodakṣaya Vishnu sprouted a lotus flower effulgent like 1,000 blazing suns. This lotus flower is the reservoir of all conditioned souls, and the first living entity who came out of the lotus flower was the omnipotent Brahmā. It appears from this verse that the conditioned souls who rested within the body of the personality of Godhead after the dissolution of the last creation came out in the sum total of the lotus. This is called Hiraṇyākṣa. The first living entity to come out was Lord Brahmā, who is independently able to create the rest of the manifested universe. The lotus is described here as effulgent as the glare of 1,000 suns. This indicates that the living entities, as parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also of the same quality, since the Lord also diffuses his bodily glare, known as Brahmajyoti. The description of Vaikuntha Loka, as stated in Bhagavad Gita and other Vedic literatures, is confirmed herewith. In Vaikuntha, the spiritual sky, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, electricity, or fire. Every planet there is self-effulgent like the sun. When that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is lying on the Garbhodak ocean, entered the heart of Brahmā, Brahmā brought his intelligence to bear. And with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. You know, it occurred to me when I just read that verse, what a glorious act it is for the Lord to enter Brahmā. And then my next thought was that of course he would be empowered to create the universe if the Supreme Personality of God had entered him. Then the third thought was, but the Lord's entered within my heart also, in the heart of every living being. And therefore, it's not only extraordinary that he's there, but it's also extraordinary that I don't have the wherewithal to see him. Also, one other thought is just that he's perfectly able and willing to empower any living being according to the desire of the living entity. Om Tat Sat. I'll read it again. Maybe it'll evoke more thoughts. When that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is lying on the Garbhodak ocean, entered the heart of Brahmā, Brahmā brought his intelligence to bear, and with the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Doesn't it seem like when you hear that verse, you could rethink everything and feel that anything's possible? Because Supreme Lord's already entered within everyone's heart. I mean, he says it in the Gita, right? Yes, Vaisesika. Purport: at a certain time, the personality of Godhead, Hiraṇyākṣa Vishnu, lies in the Karna ocean and produces many thousands of universes from his breathing. Then he enters again into each and every universe as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and fills up half of each universe with his own perspiration. The other half of the universe remains vacant, and that vacant region is called outer space. Then the lotus flower sprouts from his abdomen and produces the first living creature, Brahmā. Then again, as Hiraṇyākṣa Vishnu, the Lord enters into the heart of every living entity, including Brahmā. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter. The Lord says, I am seated in everyone's heart, and by me are remembrance and forgetfulness made possible. As the witness of the activities of the individual entities, the Lord gives each one remembrance and intelligence to act according to his desire at the time he was annihilated in his last birth, in the last millennium. This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity or by the law of karma. Brahmā was the first living entity, and he was empowered by the Supreme Lord to act in charge of the mode of passion. Therefore, he was given the required intelligence, which is so powerful and extensive that he is almost independent of the control of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just as a highly posted manager is almost as independent as the owner of a firm. Brahmā is described here as independent because, as the Lord's representative to control the universe, he is almost as powerful and independent as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Lord, as the Supersoul within Brahmā, gave him the intelligence to create. The creative power, therefore, of every living entity is not his own. It is by the grace of the Lord that one can create. There are many scientists and great workers in this material world who have wonderful creative force, but they act and create only according to the direction of the Supreme Lord. A scientist may create many wonderful inventions by the direction of the Lord, but it is not possible for him to overcome the stringent laws of material nature by his intelligence. Nor is it possible to inquire such intelligence from the Lord, for the Lord's supremacy would then be hampered. It is stated in this verse that Brahmā created the universe as it was before. This means that he created everything by the same name and form as in the previous cosmic manifestation. And now we'll just take a couple minutes for some reflections or questions. Narada Muni, and then Radhakripa, then Bhanabhata, and then Devavrata. I'm looking outside. Vamshali, and that's it.
I was just thinking about the verse that you reread, and you're saying, doesn't everyone feel like you could just go out and you can just accomplish anything by that verse? And I was reading it, and I was thinking when I was reading it, no. But when you said it and repeated it, I felt yes. And I had this profound feeling that it's actually like when you're reading with advanced devotees, that shraddha becomes imparted into the heart. And I was just having that realization when you're saying that your realization of that, like, I felt impacted me more than me just reading that. So thank you.
Go forth and multiply. Numbers of devotees. Okay. What? Online. Okay, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, this is there is a reflection and also a question from Apara Gaurangi Mataji. The reflection was related to the previous section where Mataji said, I like how it was mentioned that one should hear with the ears and the heart. Now there's a question. Could you elaborate? This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity. 3.20.17.
3.20.17. And elaborate on, say it again, elaborate on what?
This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity.
That's in the purport, right? Yeah. This intelligence is invoked according to one's own capacity, or by the law of karma. Well, as is mentioned, Partivad Dharano Dumas Tasmad Agnis Trayi Mayaha Tamasastu Rajas Tasmat Sattvam Yad Brahmadarshanam. There's various stages of capacity. Lowest stage is tamas. Above that is rajas. Tamas is like raw wood. Rajas like smoke, which smoke rarely serves, except you're a beekeeper. Usually disturbs. And sattva is the beginning of receptivity. So each being is situated in a particular modality of receptivity. The ultimate receptivity is one in which one rises above the modes, and sattvam vishuddham vasudeva shabditam yadiyate tatra puman apavrita. From the stage of Shuddha Sattva, one's receptivity is quite perfect, because from there one can directly see the Lord. Whereas from mode of goodness, sattvam yad brahmadarshanam, one can distinguish matter from spirit and act accordingly in one's life. So those are examples of capacity in relationship with the modes of material nature. Who's next? Yes, Bhanabhata Prabhu, and then Radhakripa.
My question was actually... My question was actually similar to hers. But then when you were answering her question, to what it was saying there, that the because you brought it up in the beginning and thought it was really interesting, and how Krishna is within our heart, and he entered into the heart of Brahmā, but then how did he access that intelligence? And you answer that question: how is it? It's evoked according to one's own capacity, depending on the modes of material nature. And it made me remember something we read in the previous section, where Prabhupada says the difference between the demigods and ordinary human beings is that the demigods approach authority where the inhabitants of this earth defy authority. If people would only approach the authority, then every adverse condition in this universe could be rectified. So we're all born into a pretty adverse condition, like Brahmā was, a total ignorance. But then immediately he took shelter of Krishna within his heart. And so either we may be covered by the mode of ignorance or passion or goodness, but if we simply approach Krishna, who's already within our heart, then he can solve our problem for us, give us the answer we're looking for.
Thanks, Pana. We're going over to Radha Kripa Prabhu and then Devavrata.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. In this 3.320.17, when Brahma brought his intelligence to bear and the intelligence invoked, he began to create the universe as it was before. Yeah. Does it mean that it is not a fresh start? It is from our previous life where we ended?
It's eternal. The universe is eternal. It's just sometimes manifest and not manifest. It's always the same. And the materials, the codes for it are already there. So Brahma he recalls what was there before and then reconstructs as it was.
So does it mean that if, let's say, I am in this state of mind and this time is the end of previous...
You as a living entity, you're
living
saying.
Entity, yes.
Yeah, you come from the last creation, and asau gunamayer bhaver bhuta sukshmendriya viswan nirmiteshu nirbitso bhute bhuteshu tadgunan. After the past creation, and of course, you're absorbed into the body of Mahavishnu, yashaika nishvasitikala matavalambya jivanti loma viladash jaganandanata Vishnur Mahansa Ihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Dhammam. Comes back out, creation starts over again, and the living being, the Lord Supersoul, reminds him, remember you were going shopping at Costco? You left your car running outside before the rapture. Milk.
Yes, so this means there's no end to, unless we exit from this path, we will carry over what we have been doing.
Yeah, you're not coming back. Radha Kripa is going right back to Godhead. Devavrata.
I was just appreciating the point where you stopped and just reflected with how Brahma received intelligence, and specifically the empowerment for creation, and how daunting of a task that must be. And then I was just, after you were speaking about it, I began to ruminate in what that meant for me and what my task is. And it's not the same as Brahmā, but I was just thinking that if there's something which is worth being empowered in doing, it's spreading Krishna consciousness. But as you were saying this morning, as you were praying to Giriraj, you were saying spreading Krishna consciousness without offense. And then I was just reflecting, what does spreading Krishna consciousness without offense mean? And the only thing I could think of was spreading Krishna consciousness in the mood of Trinada, peace, and Ichena. So if there's anything worth receiving from the Lord from within the heart, it's that kind of empowerment.
Yeah, it's a very thought-provoking verse. It's kind of a reminder of how little I've taken advantage of Krishna's kindness. He's there always. It's like, what do you want? Let me see. And what Bana's point was, going back to that, if you just align with authority, with Krishna's authority, as Prabhupada said over and over again, the power of the disciplic succession, he just accepted the authority of the parampara, and then he depended completely on Krishna. And Krishna, he would say over and over again, I'm not doing any of this. I'm just following the authority of my Guru Maharaj, and it's manifesting because of his desire. Thank you. Really nice points. We got two outside. One is Vamshali, who has already had his hand up, and then we have Prabhupada Priya. And then we're going to take a break.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. I have one comment from the 19th chapter, verse 32, in the purport where Srila Prabhupada writes, unless received by this bona fide process of hearing from a spiritual master, the statement of an acharya or preceptor cannot be valid. So, how to understand?
Say that again?
Unless received by this bona fide process of hearing from a spiritual master, the statement of an acharya or preceptor cannot be valid.
Okay, that was just a reflection, right?
So, I was thinking about how it actually refers to the contextualization of knowledge to bring it to our understanding in the moment of our life, in the circumstances. Because the formula may be in the book, but how to apply it in my life right now is, I was thinking about how that's, for that we need to hear directly from a person and actually get that application knowledge than the theoretical knowledge from the book or from a previous acharya who has already put it in the Shastra.
I see how you're interpreting that. I was thinking that it meant that if somebody is posing as a preceptor or an acharya but doesn't follow authority, then they don't have potency. But I see how you're thinking of it also, and it makes a lot of sense. Prabhupada, yes, were you done? Prabhupada Priya, for the close.
Hare Krishna. I was just pondering what you were saying about intelligence in the modes, and how depending on the mode of nature that we're situated in, that determines our capacity to express intelligence. And I don't know, I was kind of just having some doubts about that, because when somebody, if we look at devotees before and after sort of thing, it's usually like someone who's very intelligent. An intelligent person becomes a devotee, they become an intelligent devotee. Someone who's like a simple person, they become kind of a simple devotee. They like kirtan, prasadam, and service, and nice humble devotee. But we don't. They get knowledge definitely, but they don't become like from just a simple kind of person to like some intellectual or something. Don't really see that kind of transformation taking place.
Yeah, I think what I was talking about, or meant to be commenting on, if you can take me back to where the point was. This intelligence is invoked according to one's capacity. I was emphasizing more capacity than intelligence measured by IQ or something like that, intellectual capacity. I was talking about one's capacity to understand Krishna, because that's the context it's in. That according to one's, one of the determining factors, definitely there. Yesham tantakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam tedvanva mohnir mukta bhajanti mam dhirtavrta. I was thinking of intelligence not the way you're describing it, that someone who perhaps was in the mode of working in the mode of ignorance and then comes to the mode of goodness, then whose svabhava in any case was suited for more submissive kind of work and not intellectual exploration. It's not that they change their nature in that sense, but just that they have the capacity to, the kind of intelligence I was referring to was their ability to understand the absolute truth. That's why when I said Sattvam Vishuddham Vasudeva Shabditam, I referred to the fact that from that position they could see Krishna directly when there's an absence of the modes of material nature. So maybe unwittingly I indicated something else, but that's kind of what I meant.
Okay.
Not kind of what, that's what I meant.
Thank you for clarifying. That makes sense, because then it's not a function of intelligence, it's a matter of revelation. Right?
Yeah, and I guess I was thinking of revelation as a substitute for just substitute the word revelation for the word intelligence.
Yeah.
And the kind of intelligence that Krishna talks, the Buddhi Yoga. Buddhi means intelligence, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be more adept at PhD work or something like that.
Yeah.
But what it does mean is that you become connected to Krishna. Buddhi Yogam Tam. Yena Mamupayantite. If your capacity increases, and that's another aspect of capacity, is if one's sincere. That's an amazing example Prabhupada gives within that purport, Tesham Satata Yuktanam, that if you have a sincere desire that's been imparted to you by association with pure devotees, then even if you're in a lower mode of nature, then Krishna says he can illuminate your heart from within and give you more capacity. Devavrata has his hand up. I said for the close, but this one's going to linger for a while. Go ahead.
Just with this thread of thought, in the Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, there's just lists and lists and lists of stories of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples from various backgrounds becoming empowered with transcendental knowledge, no matter how simple they were. And I'm thinking of one, there was a devotee that wanted to study Sanskrit, and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati told him, no, I want you to work in the book publishing press. So he just gave himself to that service. He wasn't reading any Sanskrit, wasn't studying Sanskrit. And then one day in Mayapur, under a street light, he found the Harinam, the book by Bhakaran by Jiva Goswami. And he started reading the book, and he learned Sanskrit fluently.
Under the street light.
Under the street light. And then, of course, there's a story that you always tell of the farmer Gopal, when the person came to Gaudiya Math. He told Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, I want to become as scholarly as your sannyasis. He said, I think you should go speak with Gopal. And then he started asking everyone where Gopal was, and he pointed out in the field, and he said, okay, maybe Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati is trying to teach me something. So he went back to him. He's like, did you speak with him? He said, no. He said, go speak with him. So when he started speaking with him, he said, please share your realization. And he started speaking verses, and he was just a simple gardener at the Gaudiya Math. He said, how did you learn all of this? He said, I just have faith in the principle of Sevan Mukhehi Jiva Dao, and I hear from my guru. And everything would be coming out like nectar, basically, like verse after verse after verse. And many of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's disciples, they wouldn't take Bhakti Shastri until later in their devotional career, but they found when they took the course, they already knew practically everything just from hearing and serving under Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yasya devi para bhaktir yata devi tathagarau tasyai katida yarta prakashanti mahatmana. It's another aspect of capacity which relates more to what I was saying in Tesham Satata Yuktanam. I mean, my experience is devotees have a certain nature and they'll express themselves according to that. Not that everyone expresses their intelligence in the same way. Some people have a kind of intelligence it's Krishna intelligence. They become expert in services. I mean, one of the ways Prabhupada used to encourage devotees was he'd say that you do the service and Krishna will empower you. And one of the profound examples I feel is profound was the artists. And when they first started in Boston, Rameshwar was telling me that Prabhupada wanted 52 plates for the new Krishna book. It means they had to have 52 original oil paintings. And he had a group of about 12 artists. And some of them came to Prabhupada and said, first of all, I'm not very good. Second of all, I have no idea who Krishna is. And how am I going to paint God? And Prabhupada said, stay in front of the canvas and pray. And of course they asked questions and so forth, but they evolved. Their artistic acumen increased and they were able to get more capacity to serve Krishna in those different ways. Well, it's a fascinating subject matter, and now we've come to the time when we can go tell it to the cows. So we'll be back here at, let's come back here at, what? What? We're already back. All right, we'll just keep going. Is that good? Is that what you wanted? Really? No, we need a break. Let's come back here at 5:30. Okay? Cow break.